Greetings and welcome to this edition of If I Should Die Before I Wake. On this episode, we'll talk about my latest trip to Ukraine in June of 2025. We'll also talk about the 173rd Mechanized Brigade of Kharkiv and also the Freikorps Brigade of Kharkiv as well. We'll talk with Roisa about her ongoing efforts to help the Ukrainian military in the war. But before we get to that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the war in Ukraine. Things are still grim, and while the Russian military has made little advances on the front line, they have substantially increased their bombings of civilians and civilian structures throughout Ukraine. With little or no response from the West to Putin's escalating bombing of civilians, Russia feels it has no constraints in what it does and feels emboldened and cavalier in their attacking of civilians, men, women, and children. As Ukrainian support has become more and more unpredictable in the United States, support from Europe has increased significantly, especially from smaller countries such as Estonia, Denmark, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Slovakia. These small but mighty countries have contributed substantially more than most Western countries compared to their GDP. While the support of the West is vital to Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia, from the beginning of the invasion in 2022, there never seemed to be the urgency necessary to stop Russia's outright hostility and cruelty while invading a peaceful and sovereign country. There was never the appetite from the West to step up and fully confront and stop Putin, which should have been done way back in 2014 with the invasion of Crimea. As I have said before, blunt force trauma is the only thing that Putin understands and the only thing that will stop him. By the West's tepid response to Putin's aggression and cruelty, Putin has learned he can do just about anything he wants, and no one but Ukraine will stop him. Once I arrive in Kyiv, it doesn't take long to feel the war. Air raid sirens are ongoing, especially at night. People are used to going to the bomb shelters and subway stations. They make use of telegram channels to keep track of where the drones are and when the missiles might be arriving. As I record this in July of 2025, Russia sends an average of 600 drones into Ukraine an evening, not to mention the ballistic missiles. They attack mostly civilian structures and infrastructure. Ukraine is able to shoot down most, but too many get through. This is what it sounds like at night from my hotel room. Part of my trip involves going to Kharkiv in the eastern part of Ukraine, not far from the Russian border. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the war. All the bombed out buildings, not to mention the destroyed lives of individuals and families. There is a monument in one of the parks of Kharkiv dedicated to the children who have died in the city because of the war. I stay at the Park Inn, at one time a beautiful little hotel, but now the beauty is gone, but it is still open and still welcoming. As before, we have raised money for 2 military brigades defending Kharkiv. It's always good to see my friend and brother Vitaly. He is a member of the Freikorps Brigade, and we have helped them by supporting their efforts to keep their vehicles working. They don't usually receive modern military vehicles for evacuation or transport, so it is vital for them to keep their vehicles running after enduring the battlefields. Taking photos with Vitaly and the Freikorps Brigade is limited since they are a Russian target. Any evidence of location that might include the metadata of photos is forbidden. Their ability to keep their vehicles operating saves lives. Another group we are able to help is the 173rd Mechanized Brigade of Kharkiv. Again, security keeps me from revealing their names since they too are targets by the Russians. I was taken around to the various sites of their work. We had lunch. They too are charged with keeping the vehicles running. These men courageously drive into the battles and recover the wounded and transport soldiers. The men of the Free Corps and the 173rd Mechanized Brigades are some of the most impressive and heroic people I've ever met. It is a privilege to be with them. It is true, the saying, some heroes don't wear capes. On my most recent trip to Ukraine, we were able to bring 100 Cat 7 tourniquets to donate to Raisa, who was able to transport them directly to the frontline soldiers. You might remember Raisa from my previous YouTube videos, and you can find them all on my YouTube channel called If I Should Die Before I Wake. It is important to remember that it is not easy to get good, dependable Cat 7 tourniquets for the soldiers on the front line in Ukraine, the kind that don't break at critical moments, like the imitation, cheaper ones. Normally, a Ukrainian soldier would carry 6 tourniquets with them into battle, not only to save his own life, but the lives of his fellow soldiers. In today's war, Ukrainian soldiers are lucky to have 1 tourniquet with them. These Cat 7 tourniquets are not cheap. They generally run around $28, so 100 of them cost nearly $3,000. And thanks to you, we were able to give that many to Raisa for the proud defenders of Ukraine. As I mentioned in my previous video, visiting Raisa is always a joyous and happy occasion, even in the midst of war. I always look forward to her warmth, hospitality, and graciousness. I especially like to be able to bring the things that she truly needs, and those are the things that are vital for her soldiers. Things like tourniquets that literally save lives. Raisa took me to a part of Bornichi where there was another grim reminder of the horrors of the Russian cruelty. Russian missiles had struck a factory and an apartment building earlier in the week. Sadly, many families, including children, died in this horrific Russian bombing. On a lighter note, we went to visit the mayor of Bornichi, as Raisa has plans to consolidate her operations into one place, into a larger facility. She has plans for a recording studio for her own programs and interviews. She wants to create a museum for children so they understand the history of this war and the proud and heroic defense by Ukraine. As usual, we needed to make one more stop and say hello to 2 very important people, Larissa and Victor. Larissa and Victor are an elderly couple who once lived in Bakhmut, but their home was destroyed by the Russians. Raisa opened her home to them and gave them a place to live. It's always a joy to visit Larissa and Victor, and here's how our visits usually go.
Hard times, you always come to us. I'm very, very happy, really happy.
I promised Larissa that I would celebrate the new year with her, hopefully a peaceful one.
Wow!
I hope you've enjoyed this edition of If I Should Die Before I Wake. As always, you could help support our efforts in saving lives of the valiant and heroic Ukrainians as they defend their country, their lives, and their freedoms. Please scan the QR code here or email me at jkirby1@me.com. And as always, Slava Ukraini, Heroam Slava. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.